They believed I would always be their safety net. My brother's rent, my nephew's tuition, my sister's extravagant brunches, all funded by me. But when I awoke to find $7,800 had disappeared overnight, a shift occurred within me. What unfolded next? Let's just say, by dawn, the chaos erupted, and by dusk, their entire reality had transformed. Before we embark on this journey, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below, for this narrative transcends mere finances. It's about reclaiming your life at last. And here is where it all commenced. The evening my sister messaged, "I borrowed your card, just for groceries." By dawn, the truth was undeniable. I took your card, just for some groceries, my sister insisted. By morning, $7,800 had vanished. Mom merely shrugged. She requires assistance. Cruelty has no place here. I remained silent. That evening, I took a single, subtle action. At 6:02 a.m., he opened his account and let out a scream that echoed through the entire block. I'll confess, what I did next was ruthless. No warning, no conversation. One cold maneuver, carried out with a serenity that only arises when one has reached the end of their tether. The following morning, my brother's scream pierced the air, so intense that the elderly woman from across the street emerged in her robe. My mother remained frozen, her lips forming words, yet no sound escaped her lips. My sister burst out of the Brooklyn brownstone, her phone glued to her ear, unleashing a torrent of curses as if she had just been wronged. Yet, she was far from the victim. Let's take a step back. Merely 12 hours prior, she reveled in brunch with her friends, the sound of clinking champagne glasses filling the air. I know this because she shared it on her Instagram story, blissfully unaware of the transparency she had unwittingly embraced. There she sat, with freshly manicured nails, chic designer sunglasses perched on her nose, a plate of avocado toast before her, and an endless supply of mimosas at her side. There was no attempt at subtlety here. And as for how she managed the payment, simple enough. She took my card without a second thought. Once more, I received the familiar message at 8:52 p.m. the evening prior. I borrowed your card, exclusively for groceries. No apologies, no explanations offered. She spoke in that familiar, nonchalant manner, as if I were merely the family ATM and she was just picking up a quick snack. The truth is, I didn't even respond. I was simply too exhausted. That day had been consumed by a client crisis at work, leaving me to forego lunch and return home well past 9. My fridge stood empty, a stark reminder of my neglect. The irony struck me later. I hadn't even stocked up on groceries in over a week. I stumbled into chaos without a second thought. Then, as dawn broke around 7 o'clock the following morning, I opened my banking app for a fleeting moment before heading to work. My balance read $391.20. Just the day before, it had soared above $9. I stood still, not due to the figure displayed, but rather the swiftness with which it had disappeared. I navigated through the charges as if perusing the narrative of a stranger's existence. Friday night, indulging in bottle service at a chic Manhattan rooftop lounge. A delightful online shopping spree unfolds, featuring Louis Vuitton, Fashion Nova, and an eclectic mix from an off-brand boutique. A Cash App transaction sent to someone intriguingly named Ty Bangers. A $3.500 wire transfer at 2:46 a.m. Uber Black rides weaving through the city. And indeed, the brunch from the tail, totaling $248, with a generous 30% tip. It was far from mere impulse. It felt like a slap in the face. That money wasn't a bonus, it was earmarked. A crucial piece of the puzzle I relied on to manage Ryan's rent, Ethan's education, and the frequent demands that arose from Mom at least weekly. I undertook my efforts in silence, devoid of any celebration. No one offered their gratitude. Yet it was unnecessary. My sole aim was to maintain the unity of the family. Yet, to them, I seemed like an endless abyss. I climbed into the car and made my way to my mother's place. She sat there, engrossed in a morning talk show, sipping her coffee as if it were just another ordinary day. I settled into my seat, retrieved my phone, and revealed to her the actions of Jessica. Her reaction? She requires assistance. Daniel, please, don't be harsh. It was that which shattered me. Not the wealth, not the treachery, the slight lift of the shoulders. I acknowledged with a nod. No words were exchanged. I rose from my seat, declared my need to head to work, and departed. Yet, work was not my destination. Instead, I returned home and accessed every account at my disposal. My bank, my credit cards, the distinct savings account I had established for Ethan's future tuition. I transferred everything, secured it all. I disabled auto payments and took the step of removing Ryan as an authorized user on the apartment lease I co-signed. In the stillness of 2:14 a.m., I executed one last transfer, $11, into a Fidelity account that was solely mine to access. It was not an act of revenge, it was the pursuit of closure. At precisely 6:02 a.m., Ryan accessed his banking app. The moment my phone illuminated with his name, followed swiftly by a message from Mom and then another from Jessica. I chose silence. Yet, the piercing scream that echoed from Ryan's apartment reached me, cutting through the distance between our buildings. For the first time in years, a sense of guilt eluded me. The missed calls began at 6:03 a.m., with Ryan being the first to reach out. First it was Mom, then came Jessica, calling 4 times consecutively. Not a single call was answered. In the stillness, I found myself seated, the phone resting face down, cradling the same cup of coffee for what felt like an eternity. The anger that once consumed me had faded into the background. A distant memory, a profound stillness enveloped me. It was a serene tranquility, the sort that emerges when one relinquishes all concern. At 8:44, a message from Ryan arrived, laden with urgency. "What on earth did you do? The rent hasn't processed. Ethan's school is reaching out. It is imperative that you address this issue immediately. No greetings necessary. No. Are you all right? It's just entitlement." Once more, as if he has completely forgotten the countless months I paid his rent without a single word. As if Ethan's tuition hadn't been funded by the savings I painstakingly accumulated through relentless 70-hour work weeks. While he reveled in the role of the carefree dad who dismissed the notion of a 9-to-5. As if he wasn't residing in an apartment I had co-signed for. Due to his abysmal credit, by 9:12, he was pounding on my door as if the place were ablaze. I opened it slowly. He thrust his phone toward me, revealing the balance, $3.18. His rent was due yesterday. He sought to understand my actions, to grasp the reasons behind my decision to close everything off. I remained calm, offering no shouts, no justifications. I laid bare the reality, declaring that the support had come to an end. I had no obligations to them, particularly not in light of Jessica's actions. The sum of $8.700? It had been taken, plain and simple. He lost his composure. He claimed I had blindsided him, that I was undermining Ethan merely to make a statement. He suggested I was acting superior to everyone else. I chose not to reply. I had just shut the door behind me. That afternoon, my mother embarked on her campaign of guilt. It began with a lengthy voicemail. A group text follows. "We must convene this evening. Everyone is needed. No shouting. Only family. 7 p.m. at my Brooklyn brownstone." I nearly decided against it. Yet, an inner voice urged me to go. Not for their sake, but for my own. Foreclosure loomed ahead. I arrived at my mother's place around 7:20. Noticing Ryan's car already parked there. Jessica's as well. I lingered in my own for a moment before stepping inside. The instant I swung open the front door, I sensed it. It felt akin to stepping into a tempest that had yet to unleash its downpour. Jessica moved restlessly before the television, while Ryan lounged in the recliner, his arms folded across his chest. Mom occupied the kitchen, her voice rising in a familiar tirade. There was no inquiry about my well-being, no probing into the reasons behind my actions. She launched directly into accusations, claiming I was overreacting, that I had exacerbated the situation, that I had brought them shame. Shame. I took a seat in silence. She began to enumerate all the things that were now beyond their reach. Ryan was unable to cover the rent. Ethan faced the possibility of being withdrawn from school. Jessica found herself burdened by debts, unable to secure another card. Even my mother, in her own way, lamented the necessity of canceling a medical appointment due to the emergency fund I had locked away for her. I requested her to repeat those words. The emergency fund, the one I meticulously built for her, the one she never utilized for a doctor's visit. yet somehow found a way to access whenever she desired new cookware or tickets to a concert. Then Jessica interjected, her voice sharp and laden with bitterness. She accused me of cruelty, claiming I had humiliated her before her friends when her card was declined at brunch. She expressed her humiliation when Chris had to pay for her Uber. Curious, I inquired about who Chris was. She simply replied, "Just a friend." I remarked that it was a good idea. Perhaps he could assist her when she finds herself in need of $8,700 again. Ryan erupted once more, claiming I was behaving like a dictator. This family depended on me. I should have consulted them beforehand. I inquired when, precisely, they ever extended me the same consideration. When Jessica took my card at 9 p.m. and drained it by 3 a.m. Where was the conversation then? When Ryan allowed Ethan's school to call me, demanding tuition, where was the dialogue then? When Mom began treating my account like a retirement plan, they had no answers. Then Mom uttered something that finally tipped the scales. "This is not the Daniel I once knew. There's been a shift in you. You seem distant." I stood my ground, unyielding. I suggested that perhaps I had indeed reached my limit. Perhaps the weight of being utilized for so long had finally taken its toll on me. Perhaps it was the version of me they preferred, the one who readily agreed to everything, never seeking anything in return. Perhaps that person no longer existed. Then, the door swung open, no knock, no forewarning, just the unmistakable shuffle of shoes and the rhythmic tap of the old man's cane against the floor. Mr. Harrison. None of us had any inkling of his arrival. Yet, undoubtedly, he was fully aware. He had an uncanny ability to sense when things were amiss. And for the first time, someone appeared who required no explanations. For he already grasped the situation. When Mr. Harrison entered that room, it felt as though time itself had come to a standstill. Without a knock or a greeting, he simply pushed the door open, entered, and surveyed the room with deliberate slowness. The atmosphere changed in an instant. Jessica halted her tirade. Ryan recoiled as if confronted by law enforcement. And Mom remained motionless, as though her father had just discovered her in a moment of embarrassment. Which, indeed, he had. Mr. Harrison had not graced Mom's Brooklyn brownstone with his presence in almost a year. He claimed the energy was off. A veiled admission that he had grown weary of the freeloading circus. Yet tonight, he entered as if he had been anticipating this moment for an eternity. As if he had anticipated the moment. He made no request for permission. He strode directly to the kitchen, retrieved his familiar mug from the cabinet, dusty yet unblemished, poured himself a steaming cup of tea from the kettle, and settled into the head of the table, as if it were his Brooklyn brownstone. Because once, it truly was. Then he turned his gaze toward me. It was just me. I had heard the news. I offered a single nod. That was everything. He sought nothing further. He pivoted toward the others. Deliberately, his eyes unblinking, his stare more piercing than I had ever witnessed. "So, if I understand correctly," he gestured toward the trio, "you allowed this man to take care of your rent, settle your bills, finance your lifestyle, and the moment he chooses to stop being taken advantage of, you convene a meeting?" Ryan muttered something, attempting to clarify. Mr. Harrison interrupted him sharply. "You sold your power tools to fund your beer habit. Ryan, spare us your words. At 33, you find yourself in a peculiar position, with your son exhibiting a level of responsibility that seems to eclipse your own." Ryan took a seat, his face flushed with embarrassment. Meanwhile, Jessica interjected, her voice rising with that familiar blend of condescension and defensiveness, filling the air with her loud presence. I attempted to put a different spin on it, claimed I was being dramatic, that it was merely about money. And perhaps I was exaggerating the situation. Mr. Harrison maintained a calm demeanor, simply gazing directly into her eyes. I beheld the images of brunch, the hotel, the bags. The very girl who claimed to be financially strapped was indulging in $20 mimosas with strangers who couldn't even recall her last name. "Don't insult my intelligence." For once, she fell silent. He then shifted his gaze to his mother. His daughter. "And you? You were fully aware of the unfolding events. You observed Daniel exhaust himself for this family. All the while you labeled it love. Yet, it was not love. It was manipulation. You are the reason these two feel entitled to his money. You instilled in them the belief that Daniel owes them something." Mom attempted to have a conversation. Mr. Harrison lifted his hand. "Halt. I have no desire to listen." He reached into his jacket pocket and retrieved a worn, sealed envelope. With a deliberate motion, he dropped it on the table, akin to a judge delivering a verdict. "That is my will. Executed. Authenticated. Binding." Not a soul stirred. "All that I possess, the land in upstate New York, the brownstone in Brooklyn, the retirement savings, the car, everything, without exception, is destined for Daniel. Every last cent." Ryan's jaw dropped in disbelief. Jessica's laughter rang out, light and teasing. "You're joking, aren't you? He doesn't even require it. He possesses wealth already." Mr. Harrison remained unfazed. "And that is precisely why he is worthy of it." He refrained from inquiring. It was a pattern he had established. Instead, he rose, his fingers clutching the table's edge. "You're curious about the timing of my decision? It wasn't a recent choice. It dates back 2 years. During the moment of urgency when I required a ride to the hospital. My blood pressure alarmingly high. I reached out to Ryan, but he informed me that he was occupied. So, I decided to call Jessica next." She remained silent. "Daniel?" "He navigated through 60 miles of traffic and kept me company for 6 hours as they conducted tests. And not once did he mention it to anyone." Mom's gaze fell to the floor. A silent weight in the air. "You all overlooked something crucial. Family transcends the bounds of wealth. It all comes down to presence. Daniel was there, without fail, every single time. And you transformed him into your own personal ATM." Then he fixed his gaze on me once more. "You owe them nothing, Daniel. You never did. You've borne the weight of this family for far too long. If they choose to be angry now, so be it. Allow them to experience the weight of independence." He glanced back at the door, then hesitated, and there was one final thought. "If any of you dare to approach him again, if I catch wind of even one of you seeking a single cent from him, consider yourselves banished from my life. Forever. No inheritance will be granted." Silence reigns. No calls. No visits. Finished. And just like that, he was gone. The doors closed with a finality that echoed in the silence. And no one stirred. I refrained from reaching for the envelope. I had no need for it. My purpose was never about the money. I was here for Clarie Chris. And I obtained it. Ryan gazed at me as though I were an unfamiliar face. Jessica remained frozen, blinking as if she had just been struck. Mom appeared aged, worn out, diminished in a way I had never witnessed before. They anticipated my capitulation, once more. Yet, the game had reached its conclusion. And none of them had anticipated it. Silence enveloped the room after Mr. Harrison exited. You could have heard a pin drop. Ryan sat there, eyes wide and unblinking, as if he had been disconnected from reality. Jessica shook her head, disbelief etched across her face, as though she had misinterpreted every word spoken. Meanwhile, Mom wore an expression of deep contemplation, desperately searching for a way to twist the situation to her advantage. Yet her mind seemed to draw a blank. After what felt like an eternity, the room was devoid of control. It was Jessica who finally shattered the stillness. "He's bluffing," she declared. He was clearly upset. Then she turned her gaze toward me. "Did you coordinate that with him?" I remained silent. I rose to my feet, clutching my keys and phone. Just as I reached the threshold, Mom's voice echoed behind me, calling out, "Are you truly going to proceed with this? Allow the family to fracture in such a manner? All for the sake of money?" I turned to face her. "It has never solely revolved around finances. You transformed it into a matter of control. Concerning expectations, regarding guilt, I merely ceased to play the game." She attempted to speak, yet no words escaped her lips. Ryan muttered something along the lines of, "You believe you're superior to us now," though his voice lacked the volume to make an impact. I turned and left. Silence reigns. No outbursts, no theatrics, just tranquility. The days that ensued carried an odd weight. Not serene, but laden with a profound stillness. It was the sort of silence that hints at impending change. I received no word from any of them until Thursday arrived. It was then that Ryan began to reach out from unfamiliar numbers. I chose to disregard the first 2 calls. However, on the 3rd attempt, he left a voicemail. "Hey there, Ethan's school reached out. They mentioned that the tuition is overdue and are considering expelling him. Are you truly considering that action towards your own nephew? I failed to comprehend the point you're attempting to make. Please return my call." I did not. He sent a follow-up text a few hours later. "Congratulations. You're making your case clear. Hope Ethan's future is worth it." That one stung, but not for the reason he believed. Not because I felt guilt. He remained oblivious, clinging to the notion that this was a matter of revenge rather than accountability. Jessica, as always, followed her familiar path, shared a series of ambiguous, resentful Instagram stories. One of them warned to be cautious of family members who assume a divine role while merely embodying bitterness. Truly elegant as always, I remained utterly unmoved. She could lament to her followers as much as she pleased. Yet, not a single one of them was stepping up to pay her bills. On Saturday night, an unexpected call came through. The number was hidden, and I chose to let it ring unanswered. It rang once more. A second time followed. I finally answered on the fourth ring. It was Ethan. His voice carried a quiet uncertainty. The first question he posed was, "Are you mad at me?" I assured him no. It was clear that none of this was his fault. I wished for his well-being. He confided that the atmosphere at home was strained. Ryan was hardly engaging in conversation. And when he did, it was mostly in a shout. He claimed to have overheard someone labeling me as selfish, accusing me of turning Mr. Harrison against them. Then, he uttered something that took me completely by surprise. I refused to follow in his footsteps. "What was your secret?" That struck a chord within me. I found myself sitting there, gazing at the wall, wrestling with thoughts to formulate a response that wouldn't come off as a sermon. I informed him that I would return his call. The truth is, I was uncertain. I couldn't comprehend why I perceived the trap while they remained oblivious. Perhaps it was serendipity. Perhaps it was the moment I resolved to seek something beyond mere justifications. Or perhaps it was the weariness that settled in from feeling exploited before the moment slipped away. After Ethan's call, sleep eluded me. That one line echoed in my mind. Relentless and haunting. I don't want to end up like him. That insight emerged from a 16-year-old. A young soul who had witnessed just enough to understand that the path his father tread was not one of steady steps, but rather a swift descent. Rapidly, the desire to return his call lingered in my mind as dawn broke. Yet the morning arrived with an unanticipated interruption. 3 gentle, yet firm knocks echoed through the stillness. Silence reigned, no shouts, no thuds. As I turned the knob and pushed the door open, there stood Mr. Harrison. He offered no greeting, merely a nod before stepping inside as if this encounter had been orchestrated. In one hand, he held a brown paper bag, while the other clutched a battered, substantial folder. Without a moment's pause, he strode in, set both items down on the kitchen table, and settled into a chair as if it were his own domain. From the depths of the bag, he extracted 2 sandwiches encased in foil, a pair of root beers, and what appeared to be a battered manila envelope, bearing the scars of its journey. "You haven't eaten yet," he remarked, already peeling back the layers of his sandwich. He pushed the envelope in my direction, his gaze fixed elsewhere. "It's time to finish this," he declared. Within lay a trove of significance, complete copies of his will, the rightful deeds to his properties, bank account statements, keys to accounts, and insurance documents. He wasn't merely speaking, he brought it all to life. Every single piece, ironclad. Then, my gaze fell upon something else, a letter, crisp and creased in half, written 8 months prior. "Should anything befall me before I resolve this chaos, Daniel is aware of the whereabouts of everything. Do not allow the others to manipulate, intimidate, or coerce him into relinquishing what they have not rightfully earned." He remained silent as I read, methodically taking slow bites of his sandwich, as if he had rehearsed this moment in his mind countless times before. Then, he lifted his gaze. "They're unraveling already. I didn't need to inquire about whom he referred to. Ryan is attempting to secure a loan from that Emily in Denver. Jessica is attempting to unload the sham enterprise she launched in February to settle that fool's gambling debt. Or whatever title he prefers. Your mother has been incessantly reaching out to me. Initially, she was in tears. Then she implored. Just yesterday, she had threatened to drag me into court over emotional distress. I inquired if he was truly certain he was all right with all of this. He nodded, without a trace of hesitation. I had allowed it to linger for far too long. I believed that by continually offering my assistance, they would evolve into individuals deserving of such support. However, it seems my efforts merely stunted their growth. Then he extracted another item from the folder. Not merely a document, but a photograph. It bore the weight of age. Faded. At first, it eluded my recognition, but then, clarity struck. I was the one who had faded. Perhaps around 12 years of age. I found myself at the boundary of my land, gripping a shovel, my clothes dusted with earth, and a grin spread across my face as if I had just claimed a victory. It was the fence project, the singular summer I dedicated to the farm. On that day, you toiled from dawn until dusk, never uttering a word of complaint, he remarked, without a request for payment. I held no expectations. I merely inquired about what required attention. It was at that moment I understood. He remained composed, devoid of any emotional display. There was no necessity for it. Just before he made his exit, he lingered at the door and uttered a remark that took me by surprise. I understand your frustration with Ryan. However, it's crucial to pay attention to Ethan. He possesses something that sets him apart from the rest. The child observed everything intently, his focus unwavering, and then, just like that, he departed. At approximately 5:15 p.m. on that very day, Jessica reached out to me. There was no apology, no acknowledgement of responsibility. So, are you satisfied now? You've shattered this family. Mr. Harrison's time is limited. In his absence, solitude will be your only companion. Relish the wealth. I gazed at the screen for a full minute before finally shutting it down. For she remained oblivious. She always had been. Their frustration wasn't directed at my refusal. They were furious at my refusal. Yet nothing transpired. I didn't retreat. I didn't crumble. I found myself unburdened by their presence. In time, they came to understand that my worth was not tied to affection. Not for support, for survival. That chapter of my life, the one where I kept them all afloat, had come to a close. At last, I found myself crafting the next piece, free from their grasp on the pen. It's curious how swiftly individuals fade away when they cease to receive what they desire from you. In the weeks that ensued, the quiet from my family transformed into a response of its own. There were no apologies, no attempts to mend what was broken. Only a heavy, acrid silence lingered, as if they were poised, anticipating a shift in my resolve. Time lingered, poised to erode my resolve. Yet, I remained steadfast. The messages faded into silence. The fabricated crises vanished. The subtle, manipulative guilt trips faded away. I had at last transformed into the very thing they dreaded the most. Untouchable. Ryan made one final attempt. He dialed the number late one night, just past 1:30 a.m. I allowed it to slip into voicemail. His voice carried a weight of exhaustion. Defeated. He mentioned that he was on the verge of losing the apartment. He revealed that Ethan would be staying with his mother for a time. Then, he uttered something unforeseen. Your absence revealed the weight of your presence. A truth I hadn't grasped until it was gone. That message lingered on my phone. A silent reminder. And I chose not to reply. Not due to a lack of concern. Rather, it was because I understood he didn't truly mean it. Not at this moment. He felt no remorse. Instead, a sense of desperation consumed him. Jessica had vanished into the shadows entirely. She decided to take a break from social media. A mutual acquaintance informed me that Chris had vanished from her life after she attempted to sell one of her handbags and was flagged for using a stolen card. It wasn't mine, but it seems it belonged to someone else this time. She was spiraling, yet that was no longer my concern. However, my mother, she caught me off guard. A month later, she appeared at my building. There was no call, no forewarning. She didn't even reach the elevator. I caught sight of her through the lobby cameras. An envelope clutched in her hand, identical to the one Mr. Harrison had bestowed upon me. I made my way downstairs. In the lobby, our paths crossed. No embrace was exchanged. Instead, she offered me the envelope. Within lay a handwritten letter. No requests, merely recollections. She reminisced about the time I was 8 and fractured my arm. How she spent 2 nights curled up in the hospital chair. She recalled the drawings I used to leave on the fridge. She pondered when the transition occurred, from being a nurturing mother to taking on the role of a debt collector. And in those final moments, she uttered words I had never anticipated encountering from her. I was mistaken. You were never the issue. You were the sole presence that remained steadfast. She sought no financial gain. No demands were made of any kind. She merely requested that I not vanish entirely. I hesitated to respond, choosing instead to ascend the stairs. I sat with the letter, contemplating it all, the years devoted to tidying up their chaos, the weight of guilt I bore, the countless times I contorted myself in hope that perhaps this time it would bring me solace. And then I arrived at a conclusion. I chose not to return to them. Yet, I did not disappear completely. I maintained my distance. I safeguarded my finances. I preserved my tranquility. Ethan began to reach out more frequently. Our conversations meandered through topics like school, books, basketball, and various trivialities. Nothing too serious. One day, he remarked, "I believe I've finally grasped the reason you ceased your assistance to others." Curiosity piqued. I inquired about his meaning. "You never truly stopped helping," he replied. "You have only just begun to assist in the proper manner." And he was correct. My journey of aiding others was far from over. I had just finished assisting those who were unwilling to assist themselves. For the first time in my life, I felt no guilt for declining. The atmosphere has been calm recently. No drama, no fresh crises demanding my attention. Just a gradual, unwavering return to a life that resonates with my essence. Then, unexpectedly, Jessica appeared. It wasn't at my home. There were no messages or calls exchanged. Instead, she appeared unexpectedly at my workplace. As I strolled out of the building around 6, headphones snugly in place, I caught sight of her leaning against the Midtown office garage, arms crossed, sunglasses perched on her nose as if she were poised to spring a surprise worthy of a Netflix thriller. My immediate impulse was to pivot and retreat indoors. Yet, she caught my eye. She offered no greeting, no apology, simply stated, "I need 5 minutes. Not for the sake of money. Just 5 fleeting minutes." I remained there, rooted in place. She appeared transformed, weary, more slender, and lacking her usual confidence. Absent was the expensive bag. No fresh manicure. She had been brought low, whether she was willing to acknowledge it or not. So I granted her 5 minutes. She confided that Chris had departed, taking her credit cards with him, accumulating a burden of debt, and then severing all ties. She mentioned filing a police report, though her expectations were low. She found herself drifting from one couch to another, residing with an acquaintance of an acquaintance, unemployed and adrift, no backup plan. Yet, from her bag, she revealed a printed certificate. It originated from a community college. She had signed up for a night course in business fundamentals. She claimed she was uncertain of her direction, yet she believed it was essential to begin her journey somewhere. I remained silent, merely nodding in response. She met my gaze and confessed, "I know I was terrible to you. I harbor no illusions of forgiveness. Yet, I feel compelled to share that I carry no pride in the person I have become. I seek no assistance in this acknowledgement. I merely seek an opportunity to alter the course." And then she departed, without so much as a hug. No theatrics involved. I simply turned and left. I'm uncertain if she truly means what she says. I'm uncertain if it will endure. Yet, it marked the first occasion she approached me not with a request, but with a gift. Accountability. Chris. That unexpected turn took me completely by surprise.